Welcome to Glow for Hope, sparking conversation on mental health, where we break the silence, build community, and ignite hope. We're here to talk about what really matters: mental health, wellness, and the conversations that help us all feel seen and supported. Every episode will bring real stories, expert insights, and practical tools to help you navigate mental wellness and suicide prevention. Because together, we can change the conversation. Let's get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Glow for Hope, sparking conversation on mental health. I'm your host, Kelly Poelker. At Glow for Hope, we believe in having honest conversations about mental health, resilience, hope, and the experiences that shape our lives. Every person has a story, and sometimes those stories remind us just how strong the human spirit can be, even in life's most difficult moments. Since June is Men's Mental Health Month, today's conversation is especially important. Men are often taught to be strong, push through the pain, and carry their burdens silently, but real strength isn't about suffering alone. It's about perseverance, vulnerability, and finding hope even when life takes an unexpected turn. Today's guest knows something about resilience. Aaron Burros, known to many as the Running Service, is an endurance athlete whose life changed forever when he survived being shot 5 times. What could have been the end of his story became the beginning of an incredible journey of recovery, healing, and purpose. But today we're not just talking about the shooting, we're talking about the man behind the story, the lessons he's learned, and what his journey can teach all of us about mental health, resilience, and hope. Aaron, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, Kelly. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, before we get into the event that changed your life, I want listeners to know the man behind the story. So, who is Aaron Burros? Tell us a little about what shaped you, who you were when you grew up, and how running came into your life.
Well, who I am, if you look on my Facebook page, it says that I'm a redeemed sinner by the Lord Jesus Christ. So I find my identity first and foremost in the person and the works of Christ. But before that, I was just another lost soul out in the world, subject to the fall of humanity and subject to the whims of every family and every dynamic thereof. And I was born in Akron, Ohio. My mom moved us to Houston, Texas when I was about 10 years old. Akron was the rubber capital of the world. And once the factories left, it kind of died. And most people know about Akron because that's where LeBron James is from, which it kind of revived with the birth of King James, if you want to say that. But yeah, that's where I'm from, and so I grew up in Alief, Texas, affectionately known as the SWAT to many, Southwest Alief, Texas, and we have a host of famous people from music to film to technology that is from Alief, Elsik, where I went to school. The most famous person, of course, it's debated, but people from the SWAT know the truth. Beyonce was there, and we know that Lizzo came from there as well, and just a ton of other people.
Yeah.
Randy White with baseball, and just a lot of other people. End up going to Bible college, living life and kids and things of that nature. And next thing you know, I went from an athlete, someone that was active and fit and fine and chiseled and everything else, to this guy that was almost 400 pounds. And when I
Oh, wow.
graduated, when I graduated with my degree from the College of Biblical Studies in Houston, a friend of mine at the time, he had gotten engaged, and he ended up losing a bunch of weight before his wedding. And I was like, wow. I was like, that's what I need to do. And eventually, through a series of different circumstances, part of that was the high gas prices at the time, $5 a gallon.
Which we're back at now.
Yeah, we were right there at it again. And my truck broke down, and I lived like 17 miles away from work. I ended up moving closer to work and walking 30 minutes to work, 30 minutes home. And the doctor had told me when I turned 40, I went to get my prostate checked and have my annual checkup. And he told me I needed to lose 40 pounds or it was going to lose me.
Oof.
And that's how my journey started uh, towards running. It was just walking at first.
Uh-huh.
And I eventually it got hot because I live in Houston, Texas at the time. As long as it was cool, I was good walking to work. But when it got hot, I was like, man, I gotta hurry up and get to work.
Yeah, it
You
gets
know, 30
very
minutes
humid
in the
there.
yeah,
Very
30
humid.
minutes in the Texas heat is it's like being in a fiery furnace. And
Uh-huh.
so eventually I would try to speed walk to work, and then eventually I was trying to run into work, and I had a backpack on me with my clothes in it because by the time I got to work I was soaking wet and I had to change and everything. And that 15 minutes turned into 20 with me trying to run, and 20 turned into 25, 30, 35, 40 until I got up to an hour to where I was running like an hour. We had a park next to my job, and I would just go there, finish my hour run, and go have some coffee, cool down at the McDonald's across the street, change clothes, and go into work. And that's how it all started.
Wow.
I lost 40 pounds the first 2 months. My doctor gave me, uh, he said, you need to lose 3 months. I'm giving you 3 months, but I lost it, and I lost 40 pounds in 2 months. The first year, I ended up losing 100 pounds. And then over the next 4 years, I lost a total of an additional 78 pounds. So I lost 178 pounds, which is
A whole
10
nother
pounds
person.
bigger than the average size of a man in America.
Yeah. Wow, that's impressive. So before November 2015, how would the people who knew you best have described you?
Oh, outgoing, don't know a stranger, charismatic, people lover,
Mm-hmm.
hard worker, intelligent, smart, enthusiastic. Um, I could handle stress, and I could handle multiple things coming at me at one time. One of my coworkers said it seemed like nothing bothers you.
Mm.
You know, when it came to situations, stressful situations or hard situations, I was able to juggle different things at once.
So when you were growing up, were there certain messages that you received about what it meant to be a man? Or were you encouraged to talk about emotions and or expected to just push through things?
Oh no, I was told like most men that a real man don't cry, suck it up.
Mhm.
Nobody likes a crybaby. You'll never have a woman like that. Don't show emotions. Don't share your emotions. Um, just the regular old stuff. And I remember just sweeping it all under the rug. Sweep it under the rug. That's what you did. The only time it was acceptable to cry is if you were at a funeral.
Mm.
And I remember saying to myself, when my grandmother died, I remember saying to myself, people don't die, people are not crying here at the funeral because of who passed. They're crying because of themselves. They're crying because this is the only acceptable place for a man to cry.
So do you think men are getting better today at talking about mental health, or we still have a long way to go?
We have an absolutely very long way to go. Um, and my journey personally, especially with the Lord, I've sat and I've cried. I remember reading in the Bible, my favorite verse of the Bible is John 11:35. Jesus wept. And I remember when I read that, I thought to myself, if God in the flesh can cry, so can I. And I used to have what I call crying parties for myself.
Mm-hmm.
When I got off work and stuff, I would get me a towel and I would just lay there until I cried. And I thought about all the stuff that I had gone through, about all the times where people told me to suck it up, don't cry, real men don't cry, and all the pain that I had. And I mean, this went on for months where I cried. And then I got to the point where I wasn't embarrassed to cry in public. I wasn't embarrassed to cry if something hurt at work. I wasn't embarrassed to cry at church. And even at church, when men cry, women talk about the men. I had women talk about me at church about crying. As a matter of fact, there are pastors that go around and they'll talk to churches about um, how godly it is for a man to cry and show his emotions. And then most women say, well, you know, I'm married to a man. He don't really share. He don't really talk. He don't really this. He don't really that. That has nothing to do with her as a wife. It's just that's the way we were raised as men. And especially with the stigma that women portray when they do see a man cry, you weak. Something must be wrong with you. I don't want to be with no crybaby. And you hear this from women. So men, what do? We suck it up. Why? Because what man want to be told by his wife or his woman that you're weak because you're crying?
Mm-hmm.
You know, you've heard that all your life. So the thing is it must be true. Let me suck it up. You know, my dad told me, my uncles told me, my brothers told me, my mama told me, now my wife telling me, and there's just no safe place. I go around and I speak about running for my mental health and well-being. I go around and especially this month, with it being the second annual International June Mental Health Month for Men, I've been at events, and when people look at my book, they come over and they ask what it's about, and I tell them, you know, it's more than a book about running. It's about running for your mental health and well-being. I see men right away just put it down and walk away. Anything that has anything to do with mental health, they just, because as much as we know that we need it, we also understand as men our value to women, our family, and society is only as good as what we give. And the moment what we give don't line up with who we are, then our value immediately drops. And so although we're the same person, our performance, when crying is entered into the picture, when weeping, when being vulnerable, sharing your emotions come up, our value just goes down.
Do you think that's kind of generational though? And that the younger generation is a little bit more accepting of that because they've heard so much more that it is okay to cry and share your emotions on the male side, and that the women aren't as judgmental about it versus, people our age and older that might not be as forgiving about it.
No, it's actually, I deal with a lot of youth and young adults as well, on both sides of the spectrum, men and women. And it's the same thing. As a matter of fact, it's doubled down on with the younger generation women. And the guys that cry or whatever, it's more um, of an emasculating thing for your manhood. That's the way it's looked at. So as long as you act a little feminine and you're in touch with your feminine side, then it's acceptable by society and women. However, amongst men, it's still like, yeah, your worth is, no woman's going to want to be with you. Nobody's going to take you serious. It's even more dangerous because it's it's funneled now to where we're only going to accept you as a man crying and being emotional and sharing your pain and your hurts and admitting that you're flawed and that you need help only if you associate yourself with being feminine,
Hmm.
because that's acceptable, and that's even more dangerous.
Yeah. You just got to keep pushing forward and doing what you do to keep making a difference out there, and it's a shame that society is that way. But I do think that we're making great strides, and we just have a long way to go. So,
And it's going to take people who don't care about the stigmas.
mhm,
Like, I'm running for an organization called No More Stigmas. And the founder of that organization, it's an international organization, had gone through some things as well. And the whole thing is we as men understand the only reason men are not getting the mental health that they need, the only reason that men are not sharing, the only reason is because of the stigma when it comes to us being a man and being accepted by the women in our lives. And like I said, whether it's a wife, a mother, a grandmother, our aunts. Um, I remember after the shooting, um, even in my company, I was like, I need to get some help.
mhm,
And this is $1 billion a year company with great health benefits, with a whole thing on mental health help in its programs, but that was only geared for the female population of employees.
hmm,
When it came to the man in the company, it was more towards drug and alcohol abuse.
mhm,
And that's really, why do you need, why do you need mental health help? Well,
yeah.
maybe it's because I just went through this shooting, and but it's acceptable for women and children, just not for men. And so I had to fight. It was nearly 2 months before I seen a mental health professional.
Let's back up and kind of take us back to that day. And no, it was November 2015, right? So it was like
Yes,
a ordinary day at work life for you, and then what happened?
that was an ordinary day, just working, doing my normal task, and I heard a my boss got over the intercom, and he asked for male employees to respond to a situation at a certain part of the building, and he said only male employees. Um, you can hear it in his voice. It was something very, very serious. And the fact that he was only asking for male employees and the urgency of it was just, okay, let me get over here and see what's going on. I'm coming from another part of the building. So I'm like, I'm going to take a shortcut, cut through the parking lot, and go in the front door. And as I was cutting through the parking lot and coming up upon the front door, I called it like you seen Charlie Brown when Linus and them come, and there's that big dust cloud that's surrounding them when they playing and wrestling and stuff. That's what it looked like to me. Because it's about 13 to 17 grown men come busting out the door, and you can immediately tell that this is a fight for survival. This is something that's very seriously that's going on and taking place. And so as I approach, I hear a guy tell another guy, go get the tool and put in work. And so I see this guy go off into shadows of the light from the parking light post into the darkness. It was raining somewhat, and I
this
see
was
him.
Was this in the evening?
Yes,
Okay.
and it was probably around 8 o'clock. But he goes off into the shadows. But I understood when I heard the guy say, "Go get the tool and put in work," because of my upbringing and my background before I got saved. I was like, this is not good. Go get the tool and put in work. That means there's a weapon involved, and he's to come back and start killing people. And so I'm trying to get people back into the building, to a place of safety, and break the crowd up, getting some kickback from people, of course, because it's a brawl going on. It's a fight. People want to see. We got customers, we have employees. And so as I'm pulling people off of the pile, telling them get in the building, the gentleman comes back and he starts shooting. At that point in time, like roaches when a light get cut on, everybody's scattering, making a beeline to the building, because that's the only safety. Everything else is, it's on its own land. So that's the only safety. And so everybody's making that beeline back there. There's a couple of more people I'm pulling off. The guy is shooting people. And I come to 3 more people, and I'm trying to get them off of one of the guys that they're trying to keep from getting a weapon, either out of his pocket, out of his waistband, or whatever. And then there's another guy that's just standing there that's with them, that's pretty much not doing anything, but I don't know if he has a weapon or not either. So while I'm trying to break these 3 guys up, I'm like, can't break them up. So I pick everybody up and kind of like body slam everybody on the ground. 2 of the guys fall off. They make a beeline to the door. And then there's our security guy who's still holding on to the guy's hand to prevent him from getting his weapon. And at the same time, the other guy that he's holding on his hand is holding on to him, so he can't get away. So I pull them back up, and I finally get the security guy free, and I have the other guy's hand, and I'm holding him. Well, at that particular point in time, as the security guy runs, the shooter turns and looks at me holding his friend, and the guy that I'm holding by the neck with my left arm and holding the weapon with my right arm, or his hand from trying to get the weapon, he tells his buddy in crime there to shoot me. And I'm thinking to myself, this is not a movie. I'm like, you in front of me. I got you in front of me. What, you want him to shoot you in the shoulder? And, you see it in the movie. Shoot him in the shoulder, goes through and hit me in my heart. But the guy ended up shooting me. And as I had my left arm up around his throat, that exposed the left side of my upper torso. And the guy was probably 6 feet, 8 feet away. And it was at that point when he shot me that I was like, yeah, these guys are killers. This dude know what he's doing.
So were they employees or were they
weapon.
customers?
I tell people this. All I know is that it was work related. The company I worked for had just under 350,000 different employees. People got moved around all the time. I have no idea. My guess would be they would be employees because of subsequent things that happened afterwards, that I would come to find out. I would say they had to be employees.
Obviously, disgruntled employees.
Yeah. But
Mm.
I never got answers. So the only thing I know is what happened, the things that happened to me, and that was it, because the company wasn't saying too much. And so the guy, he's shooting at me. When he shot me the first time, the guy I'm holding headbutted me back to try to buck me off of him. But because I had his neck, when I fell backwards, I put him down on top of me.
Hmm.
And then the guy with the rifle, he walked over and told me to let his, and so I let him go, and I'm laying on my back with my knees, with my legs bent, my hands up in the air, and I'm telling him, hey, y'all going to go about your business. Nobody's, dead. You can hear the police coming. Y'all go ahead and go. These guys was not worried about the police, which let me know that this was something more. And then the guy that I let go, he stood up, straightened his clothes out, and he looked at me and he looked at the guy with the rifle, and he told him to kill me. And the guy came a little closer and he stood over me and he said to me, I bet you next time somebody tell you to let you will. And that's when he went and proceeded to shoot me. But at that particular moment in time, it was like time just slowed down. And I began to think about my kids, who was going to tell them that their dad got murdered at work. I began to talk to God and say, God, is this what it's like before somebody murder you? I had just a peace that came over me and a calm. And it was like it was just me and God at that moment. And then my attention was drawn to his trigger finger, and I could see it being pulled back very, very slowly, which I'm sure he was pulling it, but that's what it looked like to me, like it was slowed down. And all of a sudden, the Spirit of God told me to roll over. And as soon as I rolled over, I heard the gunshot. That one missed me from hitting me center mass in my chest. It ricocheted off of the ground behind me, and the Spirit of God told me to hop to my feet and run, and I did. And I made a beeline for the door because that was the only place to go. Well, the guy gave chase to me. And so as I'm running towards the door, yelling, open the door, open the door, open the door, and thinking to myself, I'm going to run full speed. Either they're going to open this door and I'm going to dive in at the last minute and they close it behind me, or I'm going to run into the door and this guy going to finish me off. As he was running, he shot me 4 more times.
Great.
And the door did get open. I heard my boss saying, open the door, open the door, open the door. And they opened the door. I flew in and they slammed it. And when I turned around, the guy was bamming on the door, pointing the weapon, saying, let me in so I can finish killing him.
Good grief. What a traumatic, scary moment.
Yeah. And that's, I'm grateful to be here. I tell people all the time, I don't look like what I've been through, but I do have physical, mental, emotional damage. My brain was shutting down. So the trauma from the PTSD and the adrenaline, when the medics got there, my blood pressure was 268 over 200.
Oh, wow.
I was about to stroke out.
So at what point did you kind of understand how serious your injuries actually were?
Um, they were when they had me in the ambulance, and I had stripped down, and another guy had stripped down because they wanted to search. I believe he got shot in his thigh, and I they had trouble finding the entry points, and they even said, "Are you sure you were shot?" And I said, "Yes, I know I was." And they said, "How did you know?" I said, "I feel the hot metal in my body.
Mm.
You know, there's is this thing I mean, that hot bullet go in there, you feel it. It's and so one of the medics found an entry wound to one of the bullets, and so I ended up going to the hospital, and they did. I think it was maybe a CAT scan. At the MRI, I think you can't do with metal or whatever. It may have been a CAT scan,
Mm-hmm.
but they did the CAT scan or the MRI. And when I came back into the emergency room, I had an irritation inside my inner thigh, and I was complaining about it, and I told the nurse, and at that time he asked me to pull my leg back, and he put a sheet over my covering, and he examined my inner thigh, and he reached down, and when he raised his two fingers up, there was a bullet. It was sticking out of my inner thigh.
Mm.
And so they sent me to go get an x-ray of my leg to make sure no other bullets were in there. And when the nurse came back, he said the radiologist told him that I was lucky to be alive because that bullet missed my femoral artery by a centimeter.
Wow.
And he told me had it hit my femoral artery, he said I would have bled out before the ambulance even got there.
Man. I it's just hard to even put yourself in the situation and relate to what you went through. It had to be horribly scary, and you are definitely lucky to be alive.
Well, that was the best day of the whole ordeal that I would go through for another 5 years. Afterwards, I told you that there were some subsequent events that happened. One of them was when a detective came up to the hospital to interview me the night of the shooting. And he walks in and he says, first thing he tells me, he says, after introducing himself, of course, he says, "I heard you used to be almost 400 pounds." And I'm thinking to myself, what this got to do with what just happened?
Right.
And he said, "I heard you a runner." I said, "Yes." And I'm still thinking to myself, what does this have to do with what just happened? He said, "Man," he said, "you're a hero." He said, "Do you know if you would have still been 400 pounds, you wouldn't be alive. You and I would not be having this conversation right now." And he told me that he watched the video, and he was like, there was no way you would have been able to roll over like you did, hop to your feet, and run like you did.
Hmm.
And
Don't even think about things like that.
yeah. And so that was the only praise I would get, the only recognition I would get.
So,
No.
what was life actually like for you during those weeks and months that, the stuff that doesn't make the story? Like, you've talked about PTSD, not the clinical definition, but what did it actually look like and feel like in your daily life?
So imagine being hit with Hurricane Harvey in Houston, and you're yelling for help. And the people that can help you, the first responders, the The people that are in a place of safety that can come in to help you and rescue you are blaming you for the hurricane. Chose to leave a bullet in my right gluteus maximus because it was deep down, and a surgeon told me that if he removed it, two things were going to happen. One, I would be in the most pain ever, and two, I would never be able to walk without assistance. So he just removed one, left one in there. The one got pulled out of my inner thigh, and then I have another one in my soft tissue area on my left side of my glute area. And then the one that hit me with an upper torso ricocheted off of my ribs, and instead of going in towards my heart, it went out.
So what was harder, the physical recovery or the mental and emotional recovery?
The mental and emotional.
You're still going through that, right?
Yeah. Like I told you, I woke up last night and the pain it wakes me up out of my sleep. The mental and the emotional pain, I cannot describe it to someone. To where your soul is pained. I mean, people understand when a loved one passed and it hurts you and you're crying and you're weeping. This pain is a whole lot worse.
Yeah.
A whole lot worse. It literally, the pain that I experience physically, and it is very, very painful, is nowhere near the mental and emotional pain that I experienced. And that's why I went on that quest to do 50 marathons in 50 states in 50 weeks, because I was literally trying to get my life back mentally.
So did your definition of strength kind of change after all this went on?
I had what was called a Superman moment.
Mhm.
um, After the adrenaline wore off, which took a long time, and I didn't sleep for the first 10 days, I know for sure. I would say it was longer, but I would lay down to close my eyes and I was having hallucinations, flashbacks, everything. I know 10 days for sure. But it would be, with this situation, it would be some years later. I was driving westbound from the Memorial area of Houston out towards Katy on the Katy Freeway. And I literally just broke down and realized it hit me like a ton of bricks that I almost was murdered. And I remember I pulled over on the side of the highway and I was crying uncontrollably. I ended up calling my mom because it's who I was going to go get and visit, take her to a doctor's appointment. And I just wept bitterly.
Hmm.
And my mom said, "You finally realize that you're not Superman. You're not invincible." And that was that whole thing, because all my life you're being told real men don't cry. And I hadn't cried, probably publicly at least, but definitely hadn't cried up until this point on my own. Now, I had crying spells where I was crying uncontrollably for 2 to 4 hours and was embarrassed. I remember being in public places having dinner and just start crying and couldn't stop. Putting my face down on the table, putting napkins over my head. People coming up to me, "Sir, are you okay?" And I can't explain nothing to them.
Just a wave of emotions hitting you.
Like a hurricane,
Mm.
uncontrollable.
Now you ultimately returned to running after several years of recovery. What was it like to to lace up again, and what were you feeling other than the fact that you actually could lace up and get out there and run because you still had the ability to walk?
Fortunately, I did. The ability to run kind of like declined gradually, and then it just fell off to where my therapist had me walking with a stick while I was walking, and I would go to the trail and I would walk out a half a mile, and I had to sit down on this bench, and then I would wait probably 30, 45 minutes, and then I would walk back, and it was just painful. Mm. And so eventually, in 2019, I was like, told my doctors, I said, I gotta run. I knew the benefit of running. I knew what it did for my body, what it did for my mind, and the pain that I was in physically running, it didn't matter to me because the mental and emotional pain was a lot worse. It was a lot worse. And so I was like, I would rather feel this physical pain that my glute is causing me with the damage and the bullet that's there than the emotional pain. Mm-hmm. And so in 2019, I went back to running, and before the shooting, I was pacing marathons and half marathons. So I was pacing anywhere from 140 to 145 to 150 for half marathons. And I was pacing like 255 to 410 for full marathons. So I went and ran a marathon, and it took me like 6 hours and 38 minutes. The first one I did, I went to London, and I ran a 2019 London Marathon, and people was like, don't go out there and push it. Don't go out there and push it. Take it easy. I said, I'm going to take it easy. I said, I'm going to do it. I had a plan to do it in like 4.5 hours. Mm-hmm. I'm like, that's pretty, that was me taking it easy. Mm-hmm. And so the first half of the marathon, I did it in 2.5 hours, paced myself perfect, 2.5 hours. I'm past 13.1. I'm headed to 14 miles. And it's like, you ever been driving on the freeway and your engine just stops and you pushing the gas, but it ain't nothing happening? That's what that glute did. Not one of them, but both of them shut out for me. And I remember going to the medic tent, and there was a doctor there, and she was like, well, what's wrong? And I told her, I said, I have a gunshot injury in my right gluteus maximus. I got a bullet in there from a workplace shooting, and I explained to her what was going on. I said, my glutes aren't firing. She said, you're what? I said, my glutes aren't firing. I don't need to be stretched or anything. I said, I don't know what's happening. And so she had a chair and something else, and it was kind of like made a makeshift one of those back massagers that you see in the airport where you sit on it forward and it leans forward. And so she made like this little makeshift thing for me to sit on forward and lean and stuff. And she did this test to my glutes, and she said, your glutes aren't firing. They're not responding, much like your knee when they look for a reflex. Mm-hmm. And I said, I told you. She said, so what do you want to do? Do you want to call it quits? I said, no. I said, I want to finish. I came all the way across the pond to finish. And so it took me 4 hours and 8 minutes just to walk a half a marathon. Because as much as I was in my mind, like the muscles were not responding.
So was this the first marathon that you did after
Yes.
Okay. So you were it was just total mindset. You were bound and determined to complete this.
Yeah. Now, 2 weeks before the shooting, I had turned professional as an ultra marathoner, and I had a benchmark. I had committed to running professional ultra marathons, and I was going to compete for the 50-mile races. That was my sweet spot. I could empty it all out and leave it on the course. On a semi-technical trail, I was running an average of 7-minute miles. But I was going to train and compete. 2 weeks before my benchmark run is when I got shot. So when I end up seeing a surgeon after the hospital released me and they wanted me to see the surgeon, I end up seeing him. I asked him, I said, hey, can I still, I got a race in such and such time because, suck it up. Real men don't cry. Life is hard. Keep going, keep pushing, keep.
Yeah.
And so in my mind, I'm like, I'm gonna go out here and run this race still. He told me, he said, you can still do it. You're not gonna damage anything more, but you're gonna be in a lot of pain. The typical man response.
I don't care.
No pain, no gain.
Okay.
Pain is weakness leaving the body. All the typical egotistical male responses.
Mm-hmm.
I went and I competed. Around mile 35, I started falling down for no reason. My legs were giving out from the damage. Around mile 40, my body was so stressed out that I got introduced to this thing called vertigo. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you know what vertigo is, but I never.
And it just like throws you off balance and stuff, right? And your ears, does something with your ears and
it's
vision.
It's what NASA tried to do with the astronauts because they going from weightlessness back into the atmosphere and stuff, and so you get vertigo and you have no orientation about which way is up, down, sideways, whatever. Your body doesn't know, and you just collapse. But imagine me running. I'm at around mile 40, and I get vertigo. And I'm laying there at Brazos Bend 100, the trail running over Texas, the Trot family. I was running with in one of their races called Brazos Bend 100. And I was at mile 40, and I couldn't stand up. I didn't know which way to go. I was falling. And I remember some guys coming to get me, and they took me over to this gazebo, and they set me down. And I said, I got to continue. I got to finish. I only got 10 more miles to go. And they like, dude, you can't even stand up. You don't even know which way to run.
What was really driving you? Was that it just like, was it a promise you made to yourself? Was it just some kind of turning point, or why did you not just give up?
Life is hard. Suck it up. You a man. Don't let him see you sweat. Don't cry.
Were you trying to prove something to somebody?
No. As a man, that's what you do. I'm only as good as a man as of what I produce for anyone else.
Do you still believe that?
No.
What changed that?
That thinking is toxic.
What changed that stinking thinking for you?
Going through a living nightmare and nobody being there for me. People calling me crazy. Being at church, crying and weeping and hearing women talk about me. Talking about how weak of a man, something must be wrong with him. He's all the stigmas.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But it didn't matter. I was in a living nightmare.
So was that also the start of the 50-50-50 challenge? Or you ultimately finished that marathon?
That challenge. So that was all part of that 2019, but I had to start all over because COVID happened. Remember? this little thing
Okay.
called COVID. And so where I had my own personal pandemic and have withdrawn from the world and isolated and was trying to stay alive and protecting myself, had with all that I was going through, I was in such a pressure point, sleep deprivation, hallucinations, um, crying spells that lasted 2 to 4 hours, deep depressive moods, and they all rolled around like tumbling in a dryer. It was embarrassing. I didn't care who thought I was weak.
Were you
I
on any kind of
reported,
medication?
yeah, I was getting help finally with that. Um, so I went on this quest to get my life back mentally. I was like, I got to get some stability. And the only thing I knew is to run, to try to get this runner's high back that I've never experienced since.
Mhm.
To try to get clarity, to try to deal with the level of stress that I was faced with, isolation. Like I said, the mental pain that I experienced supersedes the physical.
Mhm.
And by me running, believe you me, the pain, it increases greatly. My surgeon told me that, and I just went and ran anyway. And so I went to do this quest, and the quest did a couple of things. One, my mom used to tell us, no matter how bad you have it in life or how good you have it in life, somebody got it worse, somebody got it better than you. Don't focus on yourself, focus on others. And so I wanted to focus on the most vulnerable among our society is children and our elderly. So I set a goal to try to raise $50,000 for St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital.
Mhm.
Um, then that helped me to focus on others. With me leaving to go run races, um, that forced me to get out and get around people. I had been in this cave for 5 years, and the world was passing me by. Technology wasn't the same as 5 years, and I didn't know how to function. And so I needed to get out. Um, that's what I did. And as I was doing this and reaching out to different races, because again, I wasn't working, I didn't have a bunch of money. And so I'm reaching out to races and I'm saying, hey, I'm coming to your race. This is what I'm doing. Can I basically asking people to give me an entry? And I had a lot of race directors at the time because of COVID was like, hey, come on and run. We'll give you one.
Mhm.
Um, and I would go. And then when they heard about my story, it was like they wanted to put it in their emails or just it started off just basically an in-house type of thing. And then I had a company call me and say, hey, do you mind if we share your story with a news wire that we're part of? And then they did it. And then when I ran New York marathon, the New York marathon picked it up and they sent it internationally. And then I was getting calls and stuff from everywhere. I was on Fox, CNN, and all kind of stuff. Next year it'll be 5 years since I've been telling my story, and in telling my story, I've helped a lot of people. I've learned the freedom and the strength that I have in crying and asking for help and getting help. And I remember my aunt. She called me one day and she said, I'm so proud of you. I said, for what? She said, for getting yourself some help. She said, you don't know how many Black men need help that don't get it. And
Okay.
I remember telling her, Auntie, I don't have a choice. And so my encouragement to all men, not just Black men, is get help. Don't wait until you don't have a choice.
Yeah.
Get help. And people going to make fun of you, but you're going to have And I will say it, it's only going to be a choice few that's going to be there to support you and encourage you and to tell you, Aaron, you're not crazy. My friend Lomar, I love him and his wife and his family so much. And I miss being around them. But I would be at church crying and stuff. And my friend Lomar would say, Aaron, you're not crazy. My friend Herb, who's helped me through this situation so much, another friend of mine and brother in Christ, he's been there to help me
It's good
and
that you've got
encourage me.
it's good that you've got that encouragement around you. What um what brings you genuine hope today?
And it's interesting you asked that question because I've had that question asked of me by my psychologist and my psychiatrist. They asked me, one, was I going to kill myself, harm myself, hurt myself, or others? And I told them no. And they asked me that question that you asked me. And I told them it's not what my hope is in, it's in who is my hope. And I told them the only reason that I am where I am today and have gotten through what I've gotten through is because my hope is in a person. And I remember my psychologist, he asked me, well, who is this person? And I told him, the Lord Jesus Christ. If I literally thought that this life was all there was, things would be a whole lot different.
Mm-hmm.
But because I know that to be absent from this body is to be present with the Lord, because I know that God has fixed a day where he's going to judge the world in righteousness and all things that we've done in our body. The people who have done me wrong, I pray for them.
Yep.
I wake up, like when that pain hit me the way that it hits me, I literally pray for them. I don't know who
That's all you
they
can
are,
do.
but I pray for them. And it has given me hope. It has healed me. It has helped me. The anger I have, it has allowed me to use it in a positive way, in a God honoring way, by helping bring awareness to help raise funds for troubled teens. Because I believe the young man that shot me, he couldn't have been no more than 19,
Wow.
17, 18, or 19, maybe even 16. I don't even know, but he was young. And so I've had hope in a person, which has in turn helped me in the most darkest time of my life. I remember telling my doctors at times, I've called them and said, I think you need to have me committed. And they would ask me why. I said, because I don't know if I'm talking to you or if I'm imagining this or hallucinating it. I would be sitting right in front of them. And I told them, I said, I have no grasp of reality. I don't even know what it is anymore. That's how bad it was. And they would ask me some series of questions and they would say, no, we don't need to have you committed. We can treat you. You're not a harm to yourself and you're not a harm to others. And that's what has kept me going. And it keeps me going because believe you me, it has given me a purpose and a passion to take this tragedy and turn it into a triumph.
That's good. That's a great way to turn it into something positive and to help others. So I'm going to do every now and then I do a little rapid fire session here with guests, and I'm going to ask you a question. You just give me that one word answer that comes to mind. Are you ready?
Ready? Shaking it all off.
Yep. One word that describes your recovery journey.
Resilience.
What does mental strength mean to you?
Depending upon others.
One thing men need to hear more often.
It's okay to cry.
Favorite marathon you've ever run?
Chicago.
Who inspires you?
Jesus.
A book, quote, or lesson that has stayed with you?
John 11:35. Jesus wept.
What would people be most surprised to learn about you?
I'm silly.
Well, we can tell that. What are you most grateful for right now?
My enemies.
All right. Aaron, after everything you've been through, what do you wish someone had told you about being a man when you were 8 years old?
You're born a male. When you become a responsible citizen, you become a man. And when you serve and fear the Lord, you become a kingdom man. And the goal of your life is to fear God and serve him with everything you have.
Finally, if a man is listening right now and he's carrying something heavy, whether it's depression, trauma, anxiety, grief, or just the weight of feeling like he has to hold it all together alone, what do you want him to know?
He's not alone. Find another man. Call me, reach out to me. I will come fly. I will hug you. And I'll cry with you.
And where can people learn more about you or connect with you?
Instagram at The Running Servant. On Instagram at The Running Servant. Shoot me an email, Aaron Burros at yahoo.com. That's Aaron, Burros as in Sam at yahoo.com, or connect with me at Facebook, Aaron Burros.
All right. And we'll put those links in the show notes too. Aaron, thank you so much for sharing your story, your insights, and your heart with us today. One of the things that stands out most to me from this conversation is that true strength isn't about pretending you're okay. It's about facing life's challenges honestly, allowing others to walk beside you and continue to move forward one step, 1 mile, one day at a time. And your story reminds us that resilience isn't the absence of struggle, it's the decision to keep going despite it, which you have definitely done. So thank you for being here, letting us into your journey, and thank you to everyone listening. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, Kelly. I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah. If this conversation resonated with you, please share it with someone who may need to hear it, especially during Men's Mental Health Month. Let's keep breaking down the stigma, encouraging the honest conversations that save lives. Remember, asking for help is not weakness. Talking about your struggles is not weakness. Taking care of your mental health is not weakness. You matter, your story matters, and there's always hope. Until next time, keep shining. Thank you for joining us on Glow for Hope. If today's conversation resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Remember, your mental wellness matters, and you are never alone. For more resources and support, visit glowforhopenfp.org. That's glowforhopenfp.org. Stay connected, stay hopeful, and keep the conversation going. Until next time, keep shining.
This podcast does not and is not intended to provide medical advice. The information presented on this podcast should not be interpreted or construed in any way as a replacement or substitution for medical advice. It is important that you discuss your condition, treatment options, or any questions that you may have with your doctor or healthcare provider.